Recording again. All right, welcome back. This is the virtual residency workshop 2023. This is Wednesday, June 28th, our second session of the day. This is the intake interview practicum, and we're going to start with a little bit of instruction and setting the table by Armand Pazouki of Purdue. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn the show over to Armand, and then I may have a few comments toward the end of that. So go ahead, Armand.
Thanks, Henry. Can you hear me? All right, sounds good. Let me share my screen and go to a slide. And switch a screen. All right. And thanks, everyone. So you have likely attended the intake interview. I think I'm sharing the right page. Let me.
We can see your speaker notes.
Okay.
Oh, not
how
anymore.
about now? Okay, let me just double check that. Share this. Stop sharing, and maybe I start again.
We actually had pre. Okay.
This should work, right?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So just kind of setting the stage for this session, you have likely attended the intake interview session was run by Derek and Wendy yesterday. So the purpose of this session is to actually provide an opportunity to practice intake interview with actual researchers. To begin the conversation, I'm just gonna kind of provide some of the principles that was already discussed yesterday and maybe build on that about like how to conduct an effective intake interview. Then we are all gonna head to breakout rooms where there will be opportunity to practice intake interview with actual researchers in the room, and there will be experienced facilitators in the room to observe, provide feedback, and also collect data for badging purposes. The other point I want to mention, in real life, the intake interviews are not supposed to be rushed. Today is different a little bit. We have a limited time. We want to switch rooms maybe within 15 minutes so that there will be a chance to facilitate that practice run for many other facilitators. With that, let me just go highlight some of the principles of an intake interview and the goals of an intake interview. I think, and you all mentioned it yesterday, I was in the session, probably one of the most important goals of an intake interview is to build a relationship with the researcher or sustaining an already successful relationship. So that shouldn't be a sacrifice for the purpose of coming up to a short, quick solution. And then developing a preliminary understanding of the research, computational and data needs are also important. That sets the trajectory for future collaboration with the researcher. And then intake interview should come up with action, what the next step looks like, what the timeline looks like, and then any plan for a follow-up meeting. And follow-up could be a meeting, could be reviewing somebody's code, getting back to them, could be involving other people that might be more appropriate for the intake interview or for the next steps, or even delegating the work to somebody else, but owning that process and making sure that the researcher receives what they need. Some of the pillars of effective communication, and again, a lot of these have already been delivered in previous sessions, particularly Monday session by Henry. It's important to be aware that communication styles can be very different. I have been in intake interviews where researcher comes in and owns the room and starts asking questions and they know what they need. And I have been in an intake interview where a researcher have requested a meeting. I have been in the meeting and a researcher comes and doesn't even start talking. So I think it's important to be prepared for those different communication styles and be able to manage the conversation. It's also important to be genuinely interested in what the researchers say, not just pretending. Recognition of the research impact. I think we use a lot of jargon and terminology in our domain, which researchers might not be fully aware of. And therefore, by not using those, they might not come across as somebody who is making an impact. But I think in real life, they are probably one of the most important researchers in their field. And it's highly likely that they are making a very significant contribution. So it's really important to recognize where they are, what they are doing, and how important their work is. Active listening is another important factor. And if we are delivering the conversation or any data or any note, then it's important to pause and ask questions. I think at the end of the day, the purpose of an intake interview is for the researcher to get out of the room with appropriate knowledge, not for us to deliver content. And then the goal is to facilitate dialogue instead of delivering a monologue. And some of the important thing that also helps to facilitate that dialogue and creating an active listening opportunity is asking specific open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are perhaps questions that you don't really care about the answer, but they can actually lead into some more useful conversation. I'm going to ask you to type in the chat, what do you think an appropriate open-ended question could be? But I'm going to first ask you to wait so that everybody can enter at the same time. I'm going to count 3, 2, 1, enter. Once I say enter, please enter your open-ended question. And again, this is not supposed to be a yes, no question. It's more supposed to be something that spark a conversation. All right, I'm going to wait a few seconds and then tell 3, 2, 1 and the keyword enter. And please type your question in the meantime. All right. 3, 2, 1, enter. And let me see if I can see the chat. I think it sounds, I have a little bit of a hard time seeing the chat. Okay. Yeah, like I'm just gonna sample a few questions that you typed in. I know we don't have a whole lot of time. What is the ultimate goal of your research? Could you tell me a little bit about your research and how it uses technology? What's been the biggest hurdle so far? What are the expected results of your work? And to kind of add a few other questions, and those are all great open-ended questions. To add a few, like, I have asked this question, what software are you using? And in reality, or what's your line of research? In reality, it's highly likely that I don't have any clue about the research. I don't understand the research, but because I might be only aware of a narrow research domain. But as they are starting talking about it, then there might be keywords that you can hear and you can react to and start a follow-up conversation with them. So those are all great. I think we are probably prepared to go to the breakout rooms at this point. Let me check with Henry, maybe before that, to kind of explain again what the purpose of the breakout room is. Facilitators will go to breakout rooms. There will be an actual researcher in the room, and facilitators will conduct an intake interview, but in a very condensed fashion. And then experienced facilitators or judges, who I'm assuming they are marked with JJJ, they will observe, provide feedback, take notes, and the notes will be used for actual badging. Researchers or facilitators and experienced facilitators will rotate in the room so that there will be opportunity for more interactions. Let me check with Henry if we are ready to. Oh, there's a question, Dana.
How long do the breakouts happen, and should we sort of subdivide our time by the number of people that we have participating so that everybody gets a chunk at every researcher, or do we, when we rotate researchers, do we hand off to another person?
Great question. I'm assuming there will be more than one facilitator per room. Is that correct, Henry?
Oh, yes. I think right now we have 9 researchers and there'll be 1 researcher per room. Let me check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I'm hoping a couple more show up, but I repoked them and so far no luck. So we will have several facilitators per room, and then I think in most cases we'll have 2 judges to a room. But there's undoubtedly going to be some variation. So we do not guarantee a specific number of researchers or judges per room. It's just, 1 researcher per room. We do not guarantee a specific number of facilitators, workshop attendees, or judges per room. It'll just work out as it works out. One of the things, if you have not participated in the intake interview practicum before, the thing to be aware of is it is pure unadulterated chaos. And so whatever we're doing is going to have to be robust to that chaos. And I think we have a mechanism that is going to work well. And I see another of our researchers has joined, so I'm going to add him to the researcher group. So we're going to have around 10 or 11 facilitators per breakout room, unless any additional of our researchers show up. And once we get started, we won't really have the luxury of shifting people around into new rooms. Are all the facilitators in the room conducting the interview at the same time? Yes. How should inexperienced facilitators participate? Dive in. So we are not providing guidance beyond yesterday's session and the content that Armand provided in the last several minutes. Should we have cameras on? Not necessary. I would encourage the researchers to turn their cameras on. I don't think it's necessary nobody is required, including the researchers, to have the cameras on. I would recommend judges keep the cameras off. And I recommend that the participants, the facilitators, probably it's not beneficial to have your camera on. If you're itching to have your camera on, you're welcome to have your camera on. And I want to reiterate, we are very, very pressed for time. We're going to go into the breakout rooms and it'll take a minute or 2 to get them set up. And then once we're in the breakout rooms, we're going to shift the researchers around a little bit. We'll shift the judges around a little bit. And then it's 1, 2, 3, go, and you'll have 15 minutes. Judges, during a 15-minute session, if you find someone is monopolizing the conversation, you have our blessing to tell them to let somebody else talk for a chance. Because everybody's got to have an opportunity in that 15-minute period to the AAA is just to get the RRR or JJJ to bubble up to the top of the list on the participant list. It's to make it alphabetical. So the judges are AAA JJJ because that will beat anybody named Aaron. And the researchers are AAA RRR. Again, that will beat anyone named Aaron. Okay, so should each facilitator continue the conversation from the last? No. Within the group, yes. Continue the conversation. You are, as a group, facilitating. You are, as a group, doing the intake interview. Once you get switched to a new researcher, then you're starting from scratch. Okay, so give me a minute. I got to set up the breakout rooms, and then we're ready to roll.
Henry?
Yes.
You asked me to be a researcher, but I don't think you tagged my name.
And who's this speaking?
Wayne Smith, Cal City Northridge.
Okay, hang on.
If you don't need me, that's fine too.
No, we'll cheerfully take you, Wayne. I'm just not finding you in the list.
My participants, I'm in the Zoom, of course.
Can you rename yourself?
Oh,
Yeah, just put AAARRR at the very beginning of your name.
got it. Done.
Okay. And I noticed somebody had been a researcher and then stopped being a researcher, but I put them back. Okay, so I don't see anybody else. I'm going to build the rooms. Give me about 1 minute.
Henry, you may want to stop the recording.